If you ever wake up at night and feel like someone is watching you, don't look at the air vents. Whatever's inside learns your face when you do. When I moved into my new apartment in Ohio, everything seemed perfect. Cheap rent, quiet neighbors, newly repainted walls. The only strange thing was the vents. They were old, metal, and wider than usual, almost big enough for a person to crawl through. But I didn't think much of it. Not until the third night. I woke up around 2:40 a.m. to a faint tapping. Not from the door, not from the window, from inside the vent above my bed. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, careful, rhythmic, like someone trying to get my attention without being heard. I froze. The room was silent. Then a whisper came through the vent, low and wet. "I can see you." I jumped out of bed, turned every light on, grabbed a broom, and got as far away from that vent as I could. After a few minutes of silence, I convinced myself I imagined it. Maybe it was the old pipes, maybe exhaustion. But the next night, it escalated. I woke again at almost the same time, but this time, the whisper wasn't from the vent. It was right next to my ear. "Look up." My body locked. A cold pressure pressed against my cheek, like the feeling of someone leaning over me. I forced myself to look at the vent, and what I saw nearly stopped my heart. Two pale eyes staring back at me through the slits. Not human eyes. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They just widened, slowly, like they were studying me. I ran out of the apartment and spent the night in my car. The building manager didn't believe me, but after enough begging, he agreed to open the ventilation system to prove nothing was inside. He unscrewed the largest panel while I stood several feet back. The moment it opened, a smell poured out, like rotten meat and wet soil. The manager coughed, waved his hand in front of his face, and pointed the flashlight inside. He said, "See, empty." But it wasn't. Behind him, deep inside the shaft, I saw fingers. Long, gray, jointed fingers curled around the metal frame, slowly pulling back out of sight. "I saw something in there," I whispered. The manager laughed nervously. "I've been maintaining this place for 10 years. There's nothing..." A sudden slam echoed from somewhere inside the vents. Then another. Then a violent scraping rushing towards us at incredible speed. The manager's face turned white. Something was crawling, fast. He dropped his tools and ran, shouting for me to follow. But I didn't move. I was staring at the vent, the one in my bedroom that was still open. Something was pressing against the slits from the inside. A face. Not human. Skin pulled too tight. Mouth stretched too wide. Eyes that bulged like they were trying to escape the skull. It stared at me like it finally understood my shape. "Now I know your room," it whispered. I slammed the vent shut and ran out of the building. I never returned for my things. I changed cities, changed jobs, changed everything. But last night, weeks later, at exactly 2:40 a.m., my new apartment's vent made a sound I will never forget. Tap, 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 followed by "Found you." It tells a horror story. My grandma made me promise one thing before she died. If you ever hear knocking under the backyard, don't answer it. Last night, it knocked back. My grandmother lived in a quiet rural town in Vermont. Her backyard was massive, an open field surrounded by enormous pine trees. There was nothing strange about it except one patch of dirt that she never let anyone touch. A perfect circle, darker than the rest, like the ground itself was bruised. Whenever I asked what was buried there, she'd whisper, "Not what, who." She never explained more. Years later, after she passed away, I inherited the house. I moved in to settle her affairs, and for days, everything felt normal, peaceful even. Until the fifth night, I woke around 3 a.m. to a noise that didn't belong to the house. A thumping, slow, heavy, coming from the backyard. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a deer, but then the thumping became rhythmic, like knocking from under the ground. I stared out the window at the forbidden circle of dirt. Something was pushing up from inside the soil, making it rise and fall like the ground was breathing. Suddenly, a voice, deep, muffled, echoed from beneath. "Let me up," she promised. I stepped back so fast I hit the dresser behind me. My heart hammered in terror. The voice sounded resentful, angry, desperate. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? There's someone buried in my yard and they're talking? I tried convincing myself it was a dream, but the next morning proved otherwise. The forbidden circle had changed. The soil was cracked open, as if something inside had clawed its way right to the surface. Deep scratch marks covered the dirt in perfect human-sized lines. I packed a bag and planned to leave the house that night, but before sunset, someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow knocks, same rhythm as last night. When I opened the door, no one was there, but muddy footprints led from the backyard straight to the porch. They weren't animal prints. They were bare feet, long, wide, sunken heel marks like whoever made them had been walking underground for a long time. I slammed the door and locked everything. The house grew silent. Then right behind me, I heard breathing. Not mine. I turned. Mud was dripping down the living room wall, forming words shaky and uneven. "You weren't supposed to leave." The house lights flickered. The floorboards creaked. Something was inside. I ran to the attic and barricaded the door. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my phone twice. I tried calling 911, but the call wouldn't connect. Only static. And then, a voice whispered from the darkness of the attic corner. "She buried me alive, but I'm not dead anymore." I aimed my flashlight at the corner, and what I saw should never have crawled out of the earth. A figure, thin as branches, skin torn and rotting, eyes sunken so deep they looked like holes. Mud covered its jaw, dripping from its teeth like melted wax. It took one staggering step toward me, bones cracking loudly as if they were learning how to move again. Then it smiled. "Your grandma told me your name." I don't remember how I escaped. I think I jumped through the window. I woke up hours later in the forest, bleeding but alive. I never went back to the house. Police searched the property. They found nothing in the attic, nothing human buried in the backyard. But they did find one thing: fresh footprints leading from that circle of dirt into the forest and stopping right where they found me. Whatever she buried, it's loose, and it knows me now.
It tells a horror story. Every nurse at St. Helena Hospital warned me. If the call light turns on in room 309, do not answer it. That room has been empty for 12 years. But last night, the patient in 309 called for me by name. I work the night shift at a small hospital in Pennsylvania. It's usually quiet after 2 a.m. Sleeping patients, dim hallways, beeping monitors, peaceful in a lonely kind of way. Except for room 309. Everyone avoids that one. It's been sealed since 2012 after a patient named Margaret Hayes died during a massive power outage. The official cause of death was a cardiac event, but nurses whisper something else. She didn't die alone. Someone or something was in that room with her. They found the walls scratched, deep claw marks. Not human. I always thought it was just a ghost story to scare the newbies. Until last night. At 3:11 a.m., I was filling out paperwork when the hospital intercom chimed. "Call light activated, room 309." I froze. My blood went cold. The call lights only activate from inside a room by a living patient. The other nurses stared at me. One whispered, "Ignore it, just ignore it." But I couldn't. Something deep inside me, curiosity, fear, or a stupid sense of duty, pushed me to check the hallway. The light above room 309's door was glowing red. Someone was calling for help. I approached the door slowly. The closer I got, the colder the air became. Not normal hospital cold. This felt like opening a freezer. Then I heard it. A woman's voice. Hoarse. Weak. "Nurse, please, I need help." My heart nearly stopped. It was coming from inside 309. "I can't open the door," I whispered. "No one is supposed to be in there." The voice trembled. "They locked me in. Don't leave me." I stumbled back. This wasn't a hallucination. Someone was definitely in there. I ran to the nurse's station for the key, but the charge nurse grabbed my wrist. "Don't open that room," she hissed. "We sealed it for a reason." "But someone's inside." "No," she said, even wide with terror. "It's mimicking her." Before I could argue, the intercom clicked again. A new voice came through. My voice. "Hey, it's me. I'm stuck in here. Open the door." The entire unit went silent. My legs nearly collapsed. Hearing my own voice coming from inside a locked, empty room, it broke something inside me. The charge nurse turned pale. "It's learning you." The light above 309 began blinking rapidly as if the thing inside was getting frustrated. Then the handle started to turn, even though it was locked. Metal clanked. Something hit the door from the inside, hard. Bam! 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 Dust fell from the ceiling. Then a whisper slid through the crack beneath the door, so close to my feet that I felt a breath. "I've been alone for so long. Let me wear your face for just a little while." I ran. Everyone did. We locked ourselves in the medication room and stayed there until sunrise. When morning staff came, the call light was off. The hallway was warm again. Room 309 looked normal, except for one new detail. Fresh scratch marks trailing from the door all the way down the hall to the nurse's station, right where I had been standing. Security reviewed the footage. What they saw still makes me nauseous. At 3:11 a.m., a silhouette stood behind the frosted glass of room 309's door. But it wasn't human-shaped. Tall, bent wrong, limbs too long, head tilted sideways like it didn't understand how to use a neck. And when the light blinked, the shape suddenly shifted into my exact outline. They paused the footage, zoomed in. The shape's face pressed against the glass. It wasn't mimicking me, it was studying me. And last night, home alone, my phone buzzed with a notification from the hospital system. Call light activated, room 309, addressed to Nurse Emily Carter. My name. It's calling for me again.
It tells a horror story. When I was 12, my brother disappeared in the forest behind our house. Yesterday, 14 years later, I saw him again. He was standing inside a mirror, smiling at me from the wrong side. I grew up in northern Minnesota, where the woods are thick enough to swallow sound. My older brother, Ethan, loved exploring them. I followed him everywhere, until the day he vanished. We were playing hide and seek. He ran deeper than usual. I counted to 30. When I opened my eyes, he was gone. Search teams combed the forest for weeks. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers, nothing. It was like the trees swallowed him. My parents moved away. They couldn't stand the house anymore. But I came back last year trying to understand what actually happened. Last week, everything changed. I was hiking the same trail Ethan vanished on when I found something strange among the trees. A tall mirror leaning against an old pine trunk, untouched by snow or dust. A perfectly clean mirror in the middle of a frozen forest. The glass was flawless, too flawless, like liquid metal. As I stepped closer, I noticed the reflection was off. The trees behind me looked darker, sickly, almost burnt. The sky was gray, though it was bright blue above me. And then I saw it. A figure standing behind me in the reflection. Tall, still, watching. I spun around. Nothing. When I looked back at the mirror, the figure stepped closer. My breath caught in my throat. It was Ethan. Same face, same hair, same birthmark on his jaw. But his skin was pale and tight, and his eyes were wrong. Too wide, as if someone had stretched them open and forgotten to let go. He lifted his hand slowly in the reflection, pressing his palm against the glass. I felt my legs moving without my permission. I reached out. His smile widened, way too wide. Just before my fingers touched the mirror, a faint whisper echoed from the glass. "Come inside." I stumbled backwards so hard I fell into the snow. The reflection flickered violently, like the glass was boiling. Ethan tilted his head, bones cracking loudly despite the silence. "I've been waiting." I ran. Branches slapped my face. Snow soaked my clothes. I didn't stop until I reached my house and locked every door. I tried convincing myself I hallucinated. Stress, trauma, cold, something rational. But the next night proved otherwise. I woke around 2:30 a.m. to a faint sound coming from my closet. A soft tapping, rhythmic, just like someone gently knocking on glass. Tap, tap, tap. My heart sunk. I stood and slowly opened the closet door. Inside was my bedroom mirror, covered in wet fingerprints, dozens of them. Small palms, large palms. Some looked like children. Some didn't look human at all. And in the center,
one long streak from a fingertip dragging down the glass, like someone had pressed their face close and exhaled. I leaned in slowly. Then the mirror froze over, a thick sheet of ice spreading from the center like a breath in winter air. Through the foggy frost, a face formed behind the glass. Not Ethan's. Something older, leaner, smiling with needle-like teeth that scraped the glass from the inside. It whispered with Ethan's voice, "You came back once. You'll come back again." I ran out of the house and drove straight to a motel. I haven't returned. Tonight, though, while I'm writing this, the motel bathroom light flickers. The mirror just fogged over on its own, and a small handprint is forming on the glass, the same size as Ethan's, the day he disappeared.
It tells a horror story. I never believed in haunted houses. Not until the night I stepped into one that was waiting for me. It started when my cousin Emily disappeared. Her friends said she was last seen entering an abandoned house on Willow Creek Road, a house everyone in town avoided. The kind of house parents warned their kids about, the kind built long before electricity and long after hope. The police searched it and found nothing. But I knew Emily. She wouldn't run away. Something happened to her inside that house. So I went in. The moment I crossed the doorway, the temperature dropped so fast my breath turned white. The house smelled like wet wood and old lungs. Every floorboard creaked, but not under my feet, somewhere deeper inside, like the house was stretching after a long sleep. "Emily?" I called out. The house responded with a slow exhale. I followed the sound to the hallway. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips as if claws had scraped down the walls. My flashlight flickered, and for a split second I saw a shadow at the end of the hall. Too tall, too thin, too still. "Emily?" I whispered again. This time the house answered with her voice. "Down here." I ran toward the sound, heart pounding so hard it hurt. A door on the left creaked open by itself. Inside was a staircase leading down to the basement. I hesitated. Then I heard it. Soft, broken sobbing. "Emily, I'm coming." I rushed down the steps, but halfway down the door slammed shut above me. The air turned thick, almost liquid. I could barely breathe. My flashlight shook in my hand as I reached the bottom, and that's when I saw her. Emily stood in the middle of the room, head bowed, hair covering her face. "Emily!" I ran to her and grabbed her shoulders. Her body was ice cold. Slowly, she lifted her head, and I realized it wasn't Emily. The face staring at me was pale, stretched, wrong, its mouth fixed in an impossible grin. Its eyes were empty sockets. Then it spoke with Emily's voice. "You took too long." I stumbled backward, screaming. The creature tilted its head, bones cracking like dry branches. Then, from the shadows behind it, dozens of other faces appeared. Men, women, children, all wearing that same horrifying smile. The house wasn't haunted by ghosts. The house made them. I sprinted toward the stairs, but the steps folded into the wall like a closing jaw. The walls pulsed, breathing, alive. The house groaned, hungry. I turned to run, but the creature was suddenly inches from my face. You came looking for her, so you'll stay with us. The floor opened beneath me like a mouth. I fell into darkness. They found my phone on the porch the next morning, but not me, and not Emily. The house on Willow Creek Road is still there, waiting for the next name to call.
It tells a horror story. Story number 7, The Doll That Blinked. My grandmother's house was the kind of place that never felt empty, even when no one else was in it. Every room seemed to breathe with its own quiet presence. But there was one thing in her house that terrified me even as a child. The porcelain doll in the guest bedroom. It sat on a rocking chair beside the window, lifelike blue eyes, pale cheeks, red painted lips that curled into a soft smile that never felt friendly. Grandma always said, "She's harmless, sweetheart. She keeps me company." But every time I walked past that room, the doll seemed aware, like it was waiting for me to look at it. When Grandma passed away last month, the house became mine. I moved in temporarily to sort through her things. Everything was quiet, peaceful, even comforting, until the second night. At 2:47 a.m., I heard the rocking chair moving back and forth, back and forth. Slow, rhythmic, patient. I froze in bed. That room was right across the hallway. I told myself it was just the old wood settling, but then I heard something else. A faint clicking sound, like porcelain tapping against wood, like footsteps. I grabbed my phone flashlight, opened my bedroom door, and peeked into the hallway. The guest room door was open. The rocking had stopped. Trying to gather courage, I stepped inside and pointed the light at the chair. The doll wasn't there. My heart punched my ribs. I spun around the room, scanning every shelf, every dark corner. Nothing. Then I heard a soft tap behind me. I pointed the light down. The doll stood by the doorway, upright, on its porcelain feet, facing me. I stumbled backward, dropping my phone. The flashlight spun wildly across the room, and for a moment I swear the doll moved, its head twitching toward me. Shaking, I grabbed a box, shoved the doll inside, taped it shut, and carried it out to the shed behind the house. I locked the shed, double-checked it, then went back inside. I barely slept. The next morning, the shed door was open. The box was torn from the inside, and the doll was sitting on the porch, facing the house. That night, I moved the doll to the attic, nailing the door shut. But at 3:12 a.m., I woke to the sound of footsteps above my room. Porcelain tapping. One step, then another. Then the attic door banged hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. I called my friend Mason to come help. When he arrived, we carefully opened the attic door. The doll was sitting at the top of the stairs, its head tilted, its cracked smile wider than before. Mason, trying to sound brave, grabbed it and said, "It's just a toy." He carried it downstairs toward the fireplace to burn it. But before he could throw it in, he froze, completely still. "Dude?" I whispered. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stood there. Then, in a voice that wasn't his, a soft woman's voice whispered, "She doesn't like fire." Mason turned slowly, his head twisting too far, and his face stretched into a warped smile, identical to the doll's. I screamed and ran outside. The door slammed behind me. Through the window, I saw Mason's silhouette and a smaller one beside him. Slowly, both of them turned their heads toward me. That same porcelain tapping sound echoed through the house. I don't know what controls that doll. I don't know what it wants. But tonight, as I write this from my car, I can see something sitting on the porch in the dark. Small, still, waiting. Its head just tilted toward me. And its eyes, I swear, they blinked.
It tells a horror story. Story number 9. The Silent Guest. I used to think the worst part of living alone was the silence, but I learned something far worse. Silence that doesn't belong to you. It started on a Wednesday night. I had just returned from work, exhausted, ready to collapse on my couch. As I placed my keys on the table, I heard a soft knocking from the hallway. Not on my door, from inside the apartment. 3 gentle taps, like knuckles on wood. I froze. My apartment was small, no room for someone to hide, no pets, no visitors. I waited, listening so hard my ears hurt. Nothing, just the hum of the refrigerator. I shook it off as pipes or old wood. But that night, as I lay in bed, I felt something shift in the darkness. A light pressure on the mattress, like someone sitting down at the edge. I bolted upright and turned on my lamp. Empty, but the mattress still dipped as if an invisible weight remained. The next day, things escalated. While brushing my teeth, the bathroom lights flickered. The mirror fogged over, despite the water still being cold. Then slowly, words began to appear on the glass, written by a finger I couldn't see. You left the door open. My blood ran cold. I hadn't left anything open. I always checked the locks twice, sometimes 3 times. I backed away and nearly slipped, but the light steadied and the words faded, as if no one had been there at all. That night I barely slept. At exactly 3:03 a.m., I awoke to the sound of breathing. Not mine. Deep, slow, too close. I held my breath. The other breathing continued. I turned my head slightly and saw a shape standing by my bedroom door. Tall, motionless, watching. I scrambled for my phone. When the screen lit the room, the shape was gone. But the smell it left behind, damp earth and old wood, lingered until morning. I told myself I needed rest, maybe a break, maybe I was losing it. But then I found the footprints. Small, muddy footprints leading from my closet to the foot of my bed. Child-sized, bare, wet. They stopped exactly where the mattress had dipped 2 nights before. My heart hammered as I opened the closet door. Inside was only darkness, dense, thick, like smoke without light. The longer I stared, the more I felt the certainty that something was staring back at me. I slammed it shut. The next few days, the knocking continued, always 3 taps,
always from a new place, under the bed, behind the bathroom door, inside the kitchen cabinets. And always around 3 a.m. I tried sleeping at a hotel. No knocks, no voices, no breathing. Until the fourth night. I awoke at 3:03 a.m. to find a message written on the hotel's wall mirror. "You can't leave." The letters dripped, as if written in water. I checked out immediately and returned home, terrified but cornered. I couldn't explain any of it. I just wanted it to stop. That night, I sat in the living room, lights on, every door locked, waiting for 3:03 a.m. The moment the clock hit the time, bang. Not knocks, a violent slam that shook the entire apartment. The closet door burst open on its own. A thick darkness poured out, not like shadows, but like a living thing crawling across the floorboards. The temperature dropped so sharply, my breath fogged over. From inside the darkness, a voice whispered, "You invited me when you heard me knock." I stumbled backward, falling over the couch. The darkness surged forward, crawling toward me like 1,000 hands dragging themselves across the floorboards. I ran out the front door and didn't stop until I reached the street. I left everything behind that night. Apartment, clothes, furniture, everything. I moved to another city, another state, another life. For a few months, it was quiet. Then, last night, in my new home, at 3:03 a.m., someone knocked on my bedroom wall. 3 slow, polite taps, and taped to the wall was a sheet of paper, a message scribbled in a familiar dripping hand. "Thank you for finding me a bigger place."
It tells a horror story. Story number 10. The Hunger Beneath. People always warned me not to enter the old drainage tunnels behind our neighborhood. They said they were dangerous, unstable, abandoned, full of rats. But none of them mentioned the sound. The first time I heard it, I was walking home late from a friend's house. The air was still, the street empty. I passed the storm drain at the edge of the curb, and something whispered from inside. Not a voice, not words, just a low, hungry gurgling, like a stomach growling inches away from my ear. I backed up fast and left the area, refusing to look back. As the days passed, the sound followed me. Whenever I walked near any drain, street gutters, backyard pipes, even the bathroom sink, I could hear it again. A deep, wet growl dragging itself closer. I tried to ignore it until one night, while brushing my teeth, something scraped against the inside of the drain pipe. Slow, deliberate, like claws tracing metal. Then a voice, faint but clear. Hungry. My toothbrush fell from my hand. I called a plumber the next day. He inspected everything and frowned. "There's something living in your drainage line," he said. "But whatever it is, it's big." He planned to return with equipment in the morning, but he never did. The next night, I found his toolbox outside my door, splattered with something thick, dark, and warm. The metal edges were bent, as if bitten. I barely slept, keeping every light on, but at 3 a.m., the pipes in my walls began to rattle, then shake, then slam as if something huge was crawling through them, forcing its way closer. The lights flickered. My kitchen sink began to gurgle violently. The drain swelled outward, bulging like something was pushing against it from below. Then the metal split open. A long gray arm, slimy, boneless, covered in jagged teeth, slithered out and slammed onto the floor. Another arm followed, then a head, dragging itself through the shattered pipes. It had no eyes, no real face, just a mouth, wide, raw, lined with rows of teeth, grinding against each other as it whispered, "Hungry, hungry." I stumbled backward as it pulled itself free, leaving a trail of dark fluid across the tiles. It sniffed the air. It turned toward me, and it smiled. I ran into my bedroom and slammed the door, pushing my dresser in front of it. The creature dragged itself down the hallway, scraping its teeth along the walls. Hungry, hungry. The doorknob twisted, then stopped. Silence. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. At sunrise, I opened the door cautiously. The hallway was empty, but the dresser, the floor, the walls, all were covered in long bite marks. I packed a bag and left that morning, moving to a new apartment miles away. For weeks, everything seemed normal. Until last night. As I lay in bed, I heard gurgling coming from the bathroom. Slow, wet, familiar. I got up, heart pounding, and stepped toward the dark doorway. Something scraped against the sink drain, and a whisper slithered out. Found you. Found you.
It tells a horror story. Story number 11. The Girl in the Vent. When I moved into my new apartment, the landlord mentioned one rule: never cover the vent in the bedroom. Airflow is important. I didn't think much of it. The place was cheap, clean, and quiet. But on the first night, I noticed something strange. Cold air kept blowing from the vent, much colder than the rest of the apartment. It carried a smell like damp soil. I placed my hand near the slits. The air pulsed like weak breaths. At around 2 a.m., I heard something inside the vent. Scratching, slow, rhythmic, like nails dragging across metal. I froze in bed, staring at the dark grate. Then, faintly, a whisper. "Are you awake? Are you awake?" My blood turned to ice. I convinced myself it was air pressure or a loose screw. Anything else was too terrifying to accept. But the next morning, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Tiny, dusty handprints around the vent, child-sized, from the inside. I cleaned them off, trying not to think about it. But that night, the whisper came again. Closer, clearer. Don't close your eyes. The voice was small, girlish, trembling, like someone hiding in fear. I sat up and stared at the vent. The metal slats began to bend outward, one by one, as if small fingers were prying them open. I ran out of the room and slept on the couch. The next morning, the vent was back to normal, perfectly straight, as if nothing had happened.
I started sleeping in the living room. 3 days later, while brushing my teeth, the bathroom light flickered. When it steadied, I saw something behind me in the mirror. A girl, no older than 11, standing at the doorway. Pale, wet hair hanging down her face, eyes completely black. I spun around, but the doorway was empty. The moment I stepped back into the living room, the whisper returned, this time from the ceiling vent above me. Let me out. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment in a panic. I returned with the landlord. He sighed heavily when I told him. I warned you not to cover the vent, he repeated. I didn't cover it, I insisted. He hesitated, then said something that chilled me more than the voice. That vent isn't connected to anything. It doesn't lead to the ducts. In older buildings like this, sometimes they covered up old crawl spaces and sealed them shut. So who or what was inside? That night, I slept with the lights on, curled up on the couch, staring at the ceiling vent. Around 3 a.m., I heard it. Clang, clang, clang. Something was slamming against the metal grate from inside. The screws began to spin, loosening on their own. I scrambled backward, heart pounding. The vent cover fell to the floor. Silence. Then a hand emerged. Thin, gray, too long to be human. It pulled itself through, joint by joint, until the entire figure slid out. Not a girl anymore, not even close. Its limbs were too bent, its face too stretched, and its black eyes fixed on me with hunger. Its jaw cracked open wider than humanly possible. Your turn in the dark. I bolted for the door, sprinting down the stairs, never once looking back. I moved out the next day. I told myself it was over. But last night, at my new place, as I lay in bed trying to calm my thoughts, I heard something above me. A faint scratch, then a whisper through the ceiling vent. Now it's your crawl space. And one screw began to turn, slowly, deliberately. It tells a horror story. Story number 12. The Mirror That Remembers You. I bought the antique mirror at an estate sale. Tall, Victorian, carved with roses that had long since wilted into twisted shapes. The seller warned me, "Don't keep it in your bedroom. It remembers faces." I laughed. I thought she was just trying to scare me into paying more. That night, I put the mirror in my bedroom anyway. It made the room look bigger, brighter. But as I lay down to sleep, something felt wrong. My reflection moved a split second late, barely noticeable, almost playful. I stared at it for a long time, telling myself I was tired. Eventually, I fell asleep. At 3 a.m., a soft tapping awoke me. Not on my door, not on the window, on glass. I turned toward the mirror. Something was standing behind my reflection. A shape, tall, shadow thin, looming over the bed in the reflected world. But in my room, nothing. I sat up, heart hammering, staring into the glass. The shape tilted its head, slow and unnatural, as if studying me. My reflection copied my breathing, my blinking, but not my fear. It smiled. I did not.
I threw a blanket over the mirror. The tapping stopped. The next morning, I lifted the blanket just enough to peek. My reflection's eyes were red, like it hadn't slept, like it had spent the night watching me. I covered the mirror again and dragged it into the hallway. I decided to sell it, or trash it, or burn it, anything. But that night, the tapping returned. Not faint, not distant, right beside me. Even though the mirror was outside the bedroom. I opened my door slowly. The hallway was dark, except for the mirror, now uncovered, leaning toward my door like it had moved an inch closer. My reflection stood in the center of the glass, still smiling. Behind it, the shadow was closer too. I grabbed the mirror to throw it down the stairs. That was when the glass rippled under my fingers like water. A pale hand shot through the surface and grabbed my wrist. Cold, dead, wrong. I screamed and pulled back, but the mirror pulled harder. The hallway stretched as the world inside the mirror brightened, like it was opening, welcoming me. My reflection looked at me with pity. The shadow figure whispered, "Come home." I kicked the mirror with all my strength. It shattered. Silence. I collapsed to the floor, panting, surrounded by broken shards. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I began sweeping up the pieces. That's when I froze. In every broken shard, every fragment, the reflections weren't matching my movements. Some pieces showed my back, some showed my face screaming, some showed the shadow closer than ever. One shard was different. In it, I saw myself trapped inside the mirror world, pounding on the glass, begging to be let out. I dropped it and ran. I moved to a new apartment, new city, new everything. I got rid of every mirror in the place. But 2 nights ago, I came home and found a small cardboard box by my door. No name, no return address. Inside was a single shard of the antique mirror, and on its surface, not my reflection, but a version of me, smiling darkly. Behind him, the shadow leaned close to the glass and whispered, "We remember you."
It tells a horror story. Story number 13, The Room That Isn't Always There. The first time I saw the extra door in my hallway, I thought I was just tired. My apartment only had 3 doors: bedroom, bathroom, closet. Simple. But one night, walking to the kitchen for water, I saw a 4th door. Thin, tall, painted the same color as the wall, like it had always been there and I had simply never noticed. The knob was cold when I touched it, colder than metal should be. I opened it slowly. Inside was a small room, empty, bare walls, no windows, no furniture, just a single dangling light bulb that flickered once and went dark. I closed the door and went to bed, telling myself I was too tired and too stressed. By morning, the door was gone. Just smooth wall. I convinced myself I had imagined it, but the following night, 2:47 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a door creaking open. Slow, quiet, patient. I stepped into the hallway. The door was back, wide open, and inside, the light bulb was swinging gently as if something had just brushed past it. My skin crawled. I closed the door, this time locking it with a chair braced under the knob. In the morning, the chair stood alone against a blank wall. no door. That evening, I called my friend Mark. I tried laughing it off, but my voice kept shaking. He agreed to come over and take a look. When he arrived, I joked, "Okay, watch the hallway. If a door magically appears, tell me." We both laughed, but the hallway didn't. At exactly 2:47 a.m., we watched the wall bend, like a breath pushing outward from behind the drywall. The outline of the door pressed forward, edges forming, knob emerging until the full door snapped into reality like it had always been there. Mark's face drained of all color. "Dude, what the?" This time, the door was open again. Pitch black inside. Mark whispered, "Don't!" But a soft voice floated out of the darkness. "Help me!" Childlike, weak, begging. My instincts screamed to run, but Mark stepped forward. Maybe someone's trapped. He crossed the threshold and disappeared into the dark. "Mark?" I called. No reply. I reached for my phone light and shined it into the room. It illuminated nothing. A room the size of a closet. No corners, no Mark, just an empty, dusty floor. I stepped inside, just 1 foot, before something brushed my ankle from behind. I jumped back, slammed the door, and stumbled away. Silence. Then Mark screamed, not from inside the room, not from behind the door, from inside my apartment walls. Muffled pounding echoed under the drywall. My friend's voice, strained and terrified, yelling my name. I called the police. They searched everywhere, walls, vents, attic access. They found nothing. And when I pointed to the extra door, they saw only blank wall. Mark was never found. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. Every night, I heard footsteps pacing inside the walls, sometimes tapping, sometimes scratching, sometimes whispering, "Let me out." But last night, something changed. At 2:47 a.m., the footsteps stopped. Silence. Then 3 slow knocks from the hall. I knew before I looked. The extra door was back, open, waiting. Inside stood Mark. Or something that looked like him. His face was stretched wrong, like skin pulled over a too big frame. His eyes were too dark, too deep. He smiled. "Thanks for not forgetting me." His voice crackled. "But the room is hungry, and it wants you now." He stepped forward. I ran. I moved out in the middle of the night, leaving everything behind. I don't care. I don't need anything except to stay alive. But tonight, in my new apartment, I woke to a familiar sound. The creak of a door opening. I turned toward the hallway. A new door, same shape, same height, was forming in the wall. Slowly, patiently, and from behind it, Mark whispered, "Your room found you."
It tells a horror story. Story number 14, The Night the Stars Went Out. I grew up in a small mountain town, a place where the sky was always clear and the stars felt close enough to touch. My mother used to say, "If the stars ever go dark, run." I thought it was just a superstition, a small town myth to keep kids inside at night, until the night had actually happened. It was just after midnight when every outdoor light in our neighborhood flickered, then died. My room sank into darkness. I looked out the window to check the streetlights. That's when I noticed the sky. Pitch black. Not cloudy, not stormy, just empty. Not a single star, like someone had draped a sheet of ink across the universe. As I stared, something else caught my attention. Movement. Far above the trees. Slow. Wrong. Like shapes crawling across the darkness. Too big, too quiet, too smooth. I rubbed my eyes. They kept moving. Dozens of them. I stepped back from the window as a cold feeling spread through my chest. My phone buzzed. It was my neighbor, Emma. "Are you awake? Something's outside." Before I could reply, I heard it. A deep vibrating rumble coming from everywhere at once. Not like thunder, more like a massive creature breathing just above the rooftops. Then, a low whistle, almost musical. My house creaked. The air pressure dropped so suddenly, my ears popped. The shadows on my walls began to pulse. I grabbed a flashlight and ran to Emma's house across the street. But when I got to her porch, she wasn't waiting at the door. The door was wide open. "Emma," I whispered. The living room lights were dead. Moonless darkness swallowed everything. I stepped inside, moving the flashlight slowly. Nothing. No signs of struggle, no broken furniture, just silence. Then I noticed the floorboards. They were warped, bent upward like something heavy had pressed against them from below. I backed toward the door when a soft knock came from upstairs. 3 knocks, perfectly spaced. "Emma!" I called. No answer. I climbed the stairs, every step heavier than the last. Halfway up, the knocking came again, but this time from the ceiling, like someone crawling on the roof. My heart dropped. I reached the top and heard whispering from her bedroom. Quiet, frantic, like 2 voices trying to talk at once. I pushed the door open. The room was empty, except for the window. The glass was fogged from the inside. As I approached, the fog cleared just enough to reveal a handprint, then 2, then 5, pressing outward. I stumbled backward, just as the window bulged, as if something enormous was squeezing through reality itself. A low whistle filled the room, the same sound from the sky. Then a voice whispered inches behind my ear, "Don't look up." I spun around. Nothing there. My legs moved before my brain could. I bolted out of the house and sprinted home. The moment I stepped outside, the sky trembled. The stars flickered back on in one blinding flash. The shapes vanished. The rumbling stopped. Everything was normal, like nothing had happened. Except Emma was gone. The police searched for a week. No leads, no traces, no explanation. Everyone pretended it was a normal disappearance, but I saw the way they looked at the sky at night. I saw the fear they were trying to bury. Last night, weeks after it all ended, I was heading to bed when I noticed something wrong through my window. 1 star, just 1, slowly sliding across the sky, like an eye searching for something. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Emma's number. "Don't look up. They see you now." My lights flickered. The sky went black again. And this time, something touched my window from the outside.
It tells a horror story. Story number 15. The door that wasn't there yesterday. I've lived in this apartment for 5 years, long enough to memorize every flaw in its old walls. The peeling paint, the humming radiator, the creaking wooden floor near the kitchen. Nothing ever changed. Until yesterday. Yesterday, there was no door at the end of the hallway. Today, there is. It wasn't subtle. A full-size old wooden door appeared overnight. Dark oak, carved edges, brass handle, perfectly aligned with the wall as if it had always been there. It looked ancient, wrong, like something that belonged in a basement of an abandoned church, not a modern apartment. I stared at it for a long time before finally knocking. One knock, 2, 3, nothing. But when I placed my ear against it, I heard breathing. Slow, deep, not human. I stepped back, heart racing. I told myself I was imagining things, stress, lack of sleep, the mind filling silence with monsters. That night, around 3:12 a.m., the doorknob clicked. I shot up in bed. The click came again, then a slow metallic turn, like someone on the other side was trying the handle for the first time in years. I rushed into the hallway. The handle was still moving. I froze, watching it rotate downward. Something on the other side pressed gently, testing, pushing. I whispered, "Who's there?" A whisper came back from behind the wood, identical to my voice. "Let me in." Every hair on my body stood up. I took a step backward, shaking. The voice spoke again. "It's cold. You forgot about me." I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt. Because the voice wasn't just my voice. It was my voice from years ago. A younger version of me. The version that used to hide in closets to escape my father's yelling. The version I buried deep and pretended didn't exist. The version I swore I'd never let out again. The door rattled violently. The wood bent outward as if something inside was pushing with unhuman strength. I screamed, "Go away!" The rattling stopped instantly. Silence. I backed away to my room and locked the door, even though I knew it wouldn't help. At 4 a.m., I heard footsteps pacing outside my bedroom. Slow, heavy, wrong gait, like someone learning to walk for the first time. Then, knocking. On my door this time, but not with fingers. It sounded like knuckles made of wood. The thing whispered through the crack, "You can't hide from what you locked away." I shoved my dresser against the door. The footsteps moved away. Morning finally came. I gathered the courage to check the hallway. The door was gone. No marks, no frame, no outline, just plain wall like always. I laughed in relief, a nervous, half-broken laugh. Maybe I dreamed it, maybe my mind. Then I saw it. A wooden fingerprint, just one, pressed into the hallway floorboards. Fresh. And my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Tonight, don't fall asleep. I found another door." Attached was a picture. My bedroom wall. And in the center of it, a new door, half finished, still forming, and a shadow behind the wood, shaped exactly like me. I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 16, The Girl in the Mirror That Blinked First. People always say mirrors don't lie. They do. And sometimes they tell the truth you're not supposed to see. It started 3 nights ago. I was brushing my teeth before bed, staring at my reflection like anyone does, but something felt off, like the room was too quiet, like the air was holding its breath.
I leaned closer to the mirror. My reflection leaned closer too. But then, it smiled. I didn't. I froze. The smile wasn't wide or monstrous, just a small, crooked grin, subtle enough to make me doubt what I saw. My reflection tilted its head slightly, studying me with curiosity, like it was the real one. I stepped back. My reflection didn't. It stayed in place, face pressed to the glass, grin stretching unnaturally. I ran out of the bathroom. The next morning, the mirror looked normal again. No grin, no delay. My reflection followed perfectly. I convinced myself it was exhaustion. But on the second night, something worse happened. When I entered the bathroom, the mirror was fogged, even though I hadn't used hot water. A handprint appeared slowly on the inside of the glass, as if someone trapped behind it was pressing outward. I touched it. Warm. My reflection moved a second too early this time, watching me before I moved. I raised my hand. It raised its hand immediately. No delay. But its fingers bent at a sharper angle than mine, like joints that had been forced too far. Then it spoke. Not aloud. Its lips moved silently. 3 words. Let me out. I backed away horrified, but the reflection stepped forward until its face nearly pressed through the glass. The mirror began to bulge outward, surface stretching like liquid. I slammed the bathroom door shut. That night, I covered every mirror in the apartment with blankets. But at 2:47 a.m., I heard a sound. Tap, tap, tap. Soft, rhythmic, coming from beneath the blanket in the hallway. The tapping grew louder, more desperate, like nails scraping from the wrong side of the mirror. I didn't sleep. The third night was the worst. I woke up to the sound of breathing in my room. Slow, steady, not mine. My phone screen lit up. I grabbed it. A notification. New photo captured. I hadn't taken any photos. My hand shook as I opened the gallery. The picture showed my bedroom, taken from the inside of my closet. I zoomed in. In the reflection of my dresser mirror, something was standing directly behind me. Something that looked like me, but hollow-eyed, wide-mouthed, skin pale like wet paper. And it was smiling again. I turned slowly. The room was empty, but the mirror was uncovered. I could see myself, but my reflection had its head tilted, that same crooked grin spreading from cheek to cheek. Then it blinked. First, the glass cracked. A long, jagged line split the mirror as the reflection pressed both hands against it, pushing, forcing, breaking through. I ran, but before I could escape the room, the voice whispered behind me. My own voice. You don't get to leave. Only one of us needs a body. The door slammed shut on its own. The last thing I heard before everything went black was the sound of glass shattering and something crawling out.
I'm going to tell you a very scary story. The only reason I'm writing this is because I finally understand. It never wanted to kill me. It wanted me to see it. For months, I've been waking up at 3:14 a.m. exactly. Not 3:13, not 3:15. Always 3:14. At first, I blamed stress, then insomnia, then nightmares. But none of those explained why every time I woke up, my bedroom felt occupied, like someone had been staring at me seconds before my eyes opened. Last week, I decided to stay awake past
3:14. I lay in bed, heart pounding, pretending to sleep. For a while, nothing happened. Then I heard it. A faint scraping under the bed. Not fast, not aggressive, slow, deliberate, like long fingernails dragging across the wood. My breath caught. I didn't move. Then came the whisper. "Are you awake?" I shut my eyes open. I couldn't answer. I couldn't even breathe. The whisper wasn't coming from the room. It came from directly beneath me. I clenched my teeth shut and forced myself not to respond. After a few seconds, the whisper repeated, calmer this time, almost amused. "I know you're awake. I can hear your heartbeat." The mattress shifted slightly, lifting on one side as if something underneath was pressing upward. I stayed frozen until sunrise. When I finally got the courage to look under the bed, nothing, just darkness. But the smell, a mix of damp earth and rotten leaves lingered there as if something had been hiding for hours. That night, I slept on the couch. At 3:14 a.m., I woke to a new sound. Breathing right behind the couch. Slow, deep, wet. I didn't move. Something moved closer. Footsteps that weren't quite human. Too soft to be heavy, too heavy to be soft. They circled me like a predator studying prey. I squeezed my eyes shut. A cold fingertip brushed the back of my neck. Then a voice whispered, "Why did you change beds?" A shut-up turned on every light. The living room was empty, but on the floor, a trail of dirt led from the couch to the hallway and back under my bedroom door. I didn't open it. I didn't sleep. Yesterday, I set up my phone to record while I tried to rest. I sat on the couch pretending to sleep. When I woke at 3:14, the room felt wrong again. Air thick, lights dimmer than before. My phone was gone. I found it in the bedroom later, right in the center of the bed. The screen was cracked like something with claws had dragged across it. There was one video. I hesitated, then pressed play. The video showed me sleeping on the couch, but behind me, crawling out from under the bed, was a shape. Long, thin, joints bending in ways they shouldn't. Its face was pale, stretched too wide with no eyes, just black, hollow pits staring at the camera. It crouched behind me, tilted its head, inched closer, then it slowly turned toward the camera, toward itself, and smiled. The smile took up half its face. Finally it whispered, right before the recording cut out, "Tomorrow, you'll see me without the camera." I dropped the phone and ran out of the house. I'm writing this now from a motel, door locked, lights on. But it's 3:13 a.m. as I type this, and I swear I can hear slow, scraping fingernails on the floor beneath the bed. It's waiting. 3:14. Any second now. I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 18. The voice that answered from the empty room. People think hearing your name called is normal. It's not. Not when the person calling you isn't actually there. It started on a boring Tuesday evening. I was home alone, scrolling through my phone when I heard it. "Alex!" Soft, gentle, exactly like my mom's voice. Except my mom was at work, 2 hours away. I froze in place. The voice came from my bedroom. I wasn't stupid. I didn't go check. I just sat there, listening to the silence that followed. After a minute, I convinced myself I imagined it. But the next night, it happened again. I was brushing my teeth when the bathroom light flickered. In a split second, the room went dark. I heard it whisper right over my shoulder. "Alex, come here." I spun around, heart racing, but the bathroom was empty. Just shadows clinging to the corners. I left the light on all night. By the third night, I was already anxious. I kept telling myself it was stress. Until midnight, when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Home in 10 minutes. Relieved, I sat on the couch waiting. Then, from the hallway, her voice called out, "Alex, I'm back." My stomach dropped because I just checked the time. Her shift didn't end for another hour. The voice called again, louder. "Alex, come help me with the groceries." Every instinct in me screamed, "Don't move." My hands trembled as I texted Mom. "Are you home?" She replied instantly. "No, still at work. Why?" The hallway went silent. Then footsteps started. Slow, heavy, approaching the living room. I hid behind the couch, covering my mouth, trying not to breathe. The steps stopped just behind the couch. I could feel it, whatever it was, standing inches from me. Then it said one more sentence, its voice cracking like it was learning how to speak. "Alex, you didn't answer." The lights flickered violently. When they stabilized, the presence was gone. But the nightmare didn't end. The next day, Mom came home for real. I tried telling her, but she didn't believe me. She laughed, said I was watching too many horror movies. That night, I woke up to the sound of her calling me again. But this time, the voice came from my closet. I bolted out of the room and ran to her. She was asleep on the couch, snoring softly. Then, the thing inside the closet called again. "Alex, she's not your mother!" Mom woke up to my screaming. She checked the closet. Nothing. No intruder. No signs of forced entry. She wanted me to sleep in her room that night, but I refused to step back into the house. I slept in the car. This morning, things got worse. Mom asked me why I'd been calling her name in the middle of the night. I told her I didn't. She insisted. She heard me whispering right outside her bedroom door at exactly 3:26 a.m. Except at 3:26 a.m., I was asleep in the locked car. We're staying at a hotel now. Door triple locked, lights on. But something followed us. I heard it 10 minutes ago. A voice from the bathroom vent. "Alex, open the door." I thought it was done. But just now, Mom knocked on my hotel room door, saying, "Honey, it's me. Let me in." Except I can see Mom behind me, asleep on the bed. Someone else is knocking at the door.
I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 19, The Room That Appeared at 3 a.m. I've lived in this house for 7 years. 7 years of the same hallway, the same 4 bedrooms, the same layout burned into my memory. So explain to me how a 5th door appeared last Thursday at exactly 3 a.m. I woke to a loud thud, like something heavy had fallen in the hallway. Half asleep, I opened my door. The lights were off,
the air strangely cold. That's when I saw it. A door at the end of the hallway that had never been there before. Old wooden frame, rusted brass knob. The kind of door that didn't fit the modern house at all. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I blinked hard. The door stayed. A faint light glowed under it, soft, warm, like candlelight. I should have gone back to bed. Instead, I walked toward it. Every step I took, the hallway grew longer behind me, stretching unnaturally. By the time I reached the door, it felt like my house had warped itself around me. I put my hand on the knob, warm, like someone had just touched it. When I opened it, the air smelled like dust and old wood. The room inside was nothing like the rest of the house. Victorian wallpaper peeling off, a rocking chair in the corner, and a tall mirror standing in the center. The rocking chair moved on its own, slowly, creaking softly. Then I noticed something else. In the mirror, there was a figure sitting in the rocking chair. But the chair was empty in the real room. The figure was tall, unnaturally thin, draped in what looked like funeral cloth. Its head slowly turned toward me in the reflection. I stumbled back, but the reflection in the mirror didn't flinch. It rose from the chair. Long arms, longer fingers. Its face was just darkness. I slammed the door shut and barricaded it with everything I could find. The voice continued whispering, gently tapping the door like it knew I was pressed against it. I stayed awake until sunrise. Yesterday, things escalated. At 3 a.m., my bedroom door opened on its own. Not shaking, not forced, just gently swinging open, like someone was already inside. I grabbed my phone flashlight, and there it was. The door, the same impossible door, inside my bedroom, standing where my dresser should have been. The mirror was right in front of it, and the figure was not inside the mirror anymore. It was stepping through, one long leg, then another, dragging its body through the glass like it was emerging from water. I ran out of the house barefoot, down the street until my lungs burned. I'm writing this now from a friend's place. I begged to stay the night. They agreed, even gave me the guest room. But a few minutes ago, I heard it. The thud. I opened my eyes, and there it was, a fifth door, in a house that doesn't have one, waiting for me. The warm light is glowing underneath, and the knob is turning.
I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 20, the thing that crawls out when you blink. People always tell you, don't blink during a scary movie. But no one warns you what happens when the thing in your house only moves when you blink. It started last Friday. I was in my living room reading when I felt something off. A heaviness in the air, like someone was standing behind me. When I turned, nothing. Just the hallway leading to my bedroom. I shrugged it off. I blinked once, slowly. When my eyes opened, I saw it. A shape at the end of the hallway. It wasn't clear, just a tall, dark figure, like a shadow cast by someone who shouldn't exist. I stared without breathing. It didn't move. But then I blinked again. It was closer, halfway down the hallway now. I froze. My heartbeat fluttered in my ears. I forced myself to keep my eyes wide open, staring until they burned. The figure remained still, faceless, featureless, like a silhouette pressed against reality. But the second my eyes dried and I couldn't take it anymore, I blinked. Now it was at the edge of the living room, 5 feet away. Arms dangling,
head slightly tilted, as if curious, as if excited. I backed up slowly, whispering, "No, no, no, no." I tried to keep my eyes open, but tears blurred my vision. They stung, burned, begged for a blink. I blinked twice by accident. It was inches away from my face. I screamed, stumbled backwards, knocking over a lamp. The crash didn't make it move. It just stood there, waiting for me to blink again. And I realized it could only move from the darkness of my eyelids. In the instant my vision disappeared. I slept with the lights on that night, terrified. Every few minutes I jolted awake, forcing my eyes open. Morning finally came, and the thing was gone. I convinced myself it was sleep deprivation, but the next night it returned at exactly 2:11 a.m. I blinked awake, feeling a presence, and there it was, in the corner of my bedroom, still as a statue, waiting. I stared for so long my vision vibrated. My head throbbed. My eyes felt like sandpaper. But the body needs to blink. When it happened, it appeared beside my bed, leaned forward, its face inches from mine. I shuddered, breath shaking. For a moment, I thought I saw eyes, not human ones, reflective, hungry, like polished obsidian. I ran for the bathroom, slammed the light on, and locked the door. That's when I heard it. A tiny tap on the door. Then another. Tap, 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 as if it was counting my blinks. I spent the entire night in the bathtub with the lights on, eyelids trembling, terrified to sleep. This morning, something new happened. I found dark fingerprints on the outside of the bathroom door. Long, thin, too many joints. It had been touching the door, pressing its hands against it, testing it. It's 1:50 a.m. now. I'm writing this sitting on my bed, every light in my room blazing. My eyes ache, my vision is doubled. I haven't blinked in almost a full minute. But this time, something is different. It isn't waiting in the corner. It's standing right in front of me. Even though I didn't blink, even though my eyes are wide open, it's smiling now, and I understand what changed. It doesn't need my blinks anymore. It's learned to move in the light. I feel my eyes watering, burning. I can't hold them open much longer. I'm going to blink. I don't think I'll survive the next one.
I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 21, The Forest That Knows Your Name. People always warned us never to camp in Black Pines Forest. Not because of bears, not because of wolves, but because sometimes the forest speaks back. I didn't believe any of that. I was 17, stupid, and convinced ghost stories were for kids. So when my friends suggested we camp there for the weekend, I said yes immediately. Biggest mistake of my life. We arrived before sunset. The air felt thick, like the forest didn't want us inside. Pines towered above us, branches twisting like claws. But everything felt normal until night came, until the woods started calling my name. Around 1 a.m., we sat around the campfire, joking, roasting marshmallows when it happened. From deep inside the trees,
Eli. A whisper. Not loud, not human. My friends didn't hear it at first, but I did. The voice was soft, hoarse, like leaves scraping stone. I tried to laugh it off, but then it called again, louder. Eli, come here. I stood abruptly. My friend Jonah frowned. What's wrong? You didn't hear that? Hear what? The trees rustled. Then, Eli, I'm waiting. The voice sounded exactly like my dad, except my dad had been dead for 3 years. My chest tightened. I stepped back from the fire shaking. Jonah grabbed my arm. Bro, sit down. You're freaking out. Before I could reply, the voice called again. Eli, why did you leave me? My blood turned to ice. That was the last thing I ever said to my dad before he died in the hospital. There was no chance this was a trick. Someone or something was using his voice. The fire suddenly dimmed. No wind, no movement, just a suffocating silence. Then the sound of footsteps, slow, wet, heavy, coming from the darkness. My friends finally heard it. They stood up, backing away, faces pale. Jonah shouted, "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped. Then from the darkness between the pines, a shape appeared. Tall, wrong, its limbs too long, its body crooked like broken branches glued together. Its face was completely black, except for the mouth, wide, stretching ear to ear, and from that mouth came my dad's voice. Eli, come give me a hug. I stumbled back, shaking violently. Jonah whispered, "Run!" We bolted. Branches whipped our faces as we sprinted through the trees. Behind us, the thing whispered in dozens of voices. Mom, Dad, my best friend, even my own voice. Eli, come back! But we didn't stop. We didn't even breathe. When we finally reached the car, Jonah fumbled the keys. I screamed at him to hurry. Something crashed through the underbrush towards us. He unlocked the door. We jumped in. The engine roared. Gravel flew. As we sped away, the thing stepped into the road inches from the headlights. Its face split open, revealing rows of teeth. And in my exact voice, it screamed, "You can't leave the forest!" The windshield cracked from the force of the sound, but we didn't stop, didn't look back. That was 3 weeks ago. Jonah won't talk about it. He refuses to go outside after sunset. As for me, I've been hearing footsteps outside my window every night. Soft, slow, patient. And just a minute ago, a whisper came from the trees behind my house. Eli, you left me in the forest, but I found you. Something is standing outside my window right now, and it knows my name. I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 22, The House That Ate People Alive. Most haunted houses make noise. They creak, they whisper, they slam doors. But my grandmother's house, it ate. I never believed her when she said the house was alive. I thought it was just the rambling of an old woman losing her mind. She'd sit in her rocking chair, stroking my hair, repeating the same warning. Don't touch the walls at midnight, sweetheart. They get hungry. I
died last winter. Heart attack, they said. But when the paramedics found her, her arm was inside the wall, up to the shoulder, like something had pulled her in. They said the structure collapsed, but I knew better. When I inherited the house, I should have sold it, burned it. Anything would have been smarter than sleeping in it. But I wanted to prove everyone wrong. The first night, I felt it. The hum. A low, vibrating pulse that moved through the wooden floors like a heartbeat. The walls expanded and contracted slightly, like breathing. I told myself it was ventilation. Old pipes, settling wood. Around midnight, things changed. The lights flickered. The floorboards warmed beneath my feet. And the hallway stretched longer than it should have been. I pressed my hand against the nearest wall. It pulsed beneath my palm. Not like a machine. Flesh. Something pushed back from the other side. Something soft, warm. I yanked my hand away, heart racing. But it was too late. The house knew I was there. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a wet, slithering sound in the hallway. A sound like something dragging itself along the walls. I grabbed my flashlight phone. When I opened my bedroom door, I saw handprints. Dozens of them, pressed into the wallpaper from the inside. Fingers stretching outward, as though people were trapped beneath the surface. As I walked past, the fingers moved, slowly, reaching. One pressed against my ankle. I screamed and ran downstairs. The living room was worse. The carpet bulged as if something crawled beneath it. The wallpaper peeled away in long strips, revealing a dark, fleshy surface under the wood, like raw muscle twitching. Then a voice echoed through the house. It wasn't human. It wasn't a spirit. It was the house. A deep, rumbling whisper vibrating through the floor. Stay. Every door slammed shut at once. Windows locked themselves. The house was sealed in. I ran to the kitchen. The walls there were trembling violently, swelling like something inside was pressing outward. Then I saw my grandmother. Not her body. The house had taken that, but her face. Her face pushed through the wall, mouth wide, eyes empty, frozen mid-scream. More faces followed, stretching the surface. Neighbors, cousins, people I didn't even recognize. All trapped, all suffocating, all still alive inside the house's walls. I staggered back to the side. That's when the floor opened beneath me. Not a crack, a mouth. Wooden planks split apart like jaws lined with broken nails instead of teeth. The floorboards curled upward, pulling me toward the opening. I clawed at the doorway, screaming as the house dragged me in. Fingernails tore, skin scraped, blood soaked into the wood like the house was drinking it. I thought I was going to die right there. But suddenly, the house stopped moving. Everything became still. I crawled out, shaking, crawling toward the front door. I didn't look back. I should have kept my eyes forward. Because when I reached the door knob twisted on its own. Slowly. Then the door whispered in my grandmother's broken voice. Your home. I ran. I don't remember how. I don't remember breathing. I don't remember anything except the sound of the house laughing behind me. Deep, hollow, hungry. That was the reason I'm sleeping in a motel now. But tonight, the floor is warm. The walls are humming. And I swear I heard the door whisper, "Sweetheart, houses don't forget their owners. I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 23, The Mirror That Reflected Tomorrow. People fear mirrors for silly reasons. Bloody Mary, shadows, reflections moving on their own. None of that is real. The real horror is when a mirror stops showing now and starts showing what will happen, whether you want to see it or not. It started the night I moved into my new apartment. The place came furnished, but the giant antique mirror in the hallway felt wrong the moment I saw it. The frame was blackened silver, carved with symbols that looked like twisted faces. My landlord said, "It's been here longer than I have. Some tenants loved it, others complained." That should have been my warning. The first incident happened at 3:14 a.m. I got up for water, and as I passed the mirror, something caught my eye. My reflection wasn't moving. I froze. Slowly, my reflection raised its hand and pointed behind me. There was nothing there, but when I turned back to the mirror, a sentence was scratched across the glass, etched as if with a knife. I stumbled. I reached out to touch the message, but the glass was perfectly smooth. No scratches, no marks. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At 10 a.m. the next morning, I heard screaming outside my window. A massive car accident. 3 cars crushed, metal twisted like paper. The crash happened exactly where I would have been walking on my way to work. A few hours earlier, and I would have been inside that wreckage. The mirror saved me. Or so I thought. Over the next few days, the mirror showed more warnings. A falling sign, a loose elevator cable, a burning fuse box. Every time I checked, every time the danger was real, every time the mirror showed me how to avoid it, I became addicted, obsessed. I stopped making decisions on my own. I waited for the mirror. I let it guide me. I let it protect me. Then it showed me something else. 3 days ago, the glass went pitch black. I approached cautiously. My reflection appeared, but it wasn't me. The hair was messy, the eyes hollow, the skin bruised and cut. My future self. He slammed his palms against the inside of the mirror, screaming silently as blood streamed down his face. Then words dripped down the glass, in a dark, thick pool. If you stay, you will die. I stumbled back. The mirror had never contradicted itself before. First, it told me not to leave. Now it was telling me to run. Which future was real? Last night, the mirror made the choice for me. I heard a scraping sound from the hallway. When I turned on the light, the mirror was changing. The frame twisted. The surface rippled like water. Shapes pushed forward. Hands, faces, bodies trapped under the glass, pressing and stretching it like skin. Then my reflection appeared again. This time, it wasn't the future. It was me, right now. Except it wasn't. The reflection smiled slowly, a smile too wide to be human. The thing inside the mirror whispered, "You own me."
My reflection stepped forward, out of the mirror, into my world, and I felt something cold grip my wrists, hands from inside the mirror. It was pulling me in. The last thing I saw before I disappeared inside the dark glass was the creature wearing my face, adjusting its shirt, cracking its neck, and walking toward my front door, taking my life, replacing me. The mirror didn't protect me. It prepared me to take someone else's place next. Because I am still here, trapped behind the glass, watching through the surface, waiting for the next person to come closer. The mirror showed me the future, and the future is this. Someone must take my place. Someone must enter. Someone must stay. And the mirror is always coming.
I'm going to tell you a very scary story. Story number 3. The Whispering Basement. Basements don't usually scare me. Dark stairs, old pipes, creaky boards, none of that ever bothered me. Until the night I discovered mine. Whispering. I had just moved into a new house, an old two-story place on a quiet street. The price was unbelievably low, but the realtor claimed it was due to foundation issues. Nothing serious, she said. The basement door was nailed shut when I moved in. Not locked, nailed. Long hand-forged nails, black with age. For a week, I ignored it. The first night I heard it at 2:12 a.m., a soft, rhythmic tapping coming from behind the basement door. Tap, tap. Upset. Pressed my ear to the wood. Something whispered on the other side. So fast I couldn't tell. I told myself I was imagining stress. Ethan, open the door. The third night, the basement lights came on by themselves. I saw them glow under the door, bright and steady. The house didn't even have a door to the basement. The breaker for that area wasn't connected. I checked twice. 8:45 a.m. The whisper. Voice didn't sound like yesterday. You're awake? Good. I grabbed a hammer and pried out the nails. Every nail screeched, coming out as if something was pulling on the inside. Then I pulled out the last one. The door was lifted open. Cold air spilled out like a crack. The basement was pitch black. The light I'd seen earlier was gone. Something shut. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped down slowly. The air grew colder with each step. I reached the bottom and I saw something that made my throat tight. The basement floor was dirt. In the center, cold, freshly dug, deep, circular. A whisper came from inside the hole. Come see. I flickered, dimmed, and died. Everything went dark. I heard movement, slow, dragging movement climbing up from the pit. I scrambled back up the stairs, slipping and hitting my shin so hard I nearly passed out. I slammed the basement door shut and drove every nail back in with shaking hands. The last nail left out. The next morning, I called a contractor to inspect the foundation.
than an hour after he finished his basement. He came back up, white as plaster, shaking, barely able to speak. He quit on the spot, got in his truck, and drove away. He left his tools. I had to go down to retrieve them. I know how stupid that sounds. But it was broad daylight, and I convinced myself the fear was just in my head. I went back down. The basement was exactly as before. Dirt floor, bare, cold in the center. No sign something had ever crawled out. Lying on top of the circle. My contractor's phone. A video reflected. He was recording from the moment he entered the basement. I watched as he approached the hole. The dirt inside the pit shifted and then collapsed inward as if something big had just dropped down into it. The last frame before the video cut to static was his flashlight catching something deep inside the hole. Human, reaching up. The nails were black, the skin bloated and gray. Then I saw something made my blood stop. Carved into the wrist was a word. My last name. I dropped the phone and ran.